Hello, my name is Mark. Welcome to my home. This is my 2015 Tab Max S. This is the end of the season. Last month I built myself a nice shelter here, keep the snow and rain off of it, keep it nicer. I live in northeastern Washington near the Canadian border, and there are really nasty winters here. Beautiful area. And it's now time to put this little girl away and to winterize her. There are two schools of thought about winterizing. One where you pump antifreeze into your water systems. That works okay. And the other system is where you just blow the water out. If the water's not there, it can't freeze. That's the second method. Blowout is what we're going to talk about today. I don't like the idea of antifreeze. That's a personal thing with me. I live in a very beautiful environment. I don't want to be flushing any chemicals into this soil. I try to live in this beautiful environment with the smallest footprint possible. So all in spring, if I were to put antifreeze in here, I'd have to be flushing that antifreeze out, and that antifreeze would be going into the soil. Now, the propylene glycol antifreeze that they use, or the alcohol-based stuff that they use, is generally not very toxic, but I don't want to put chemicals in the soil. I don't care if they're toxic or not. That's just me. I also don't want to put chemicals in my body, whether they're toxic or not. That's just me. If that's not you, and then this video is not for you. This video is about the blowout method on this particular tab trailer. A lot of what I'm going to talk to you about is universal amongst all trailers. Some of what I talk about is going to be specific to this trailer. Some is going to be just general to the tab in the tab trailers as a whole. So I'm hoping that if you stick with me, you'll learn something about winterizing and the blowout method. We're not going to be talking about the antifreeze method. That's just a personal choice of mine. If that's not you, more power to you. Anyway, we're going to go into my shop and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk a little bit about theory. Some people have great success with the blowout method. I have great success with the blowout method. Never had any trouble in some of the harshest winters you're ever going to see. Some people have all kinds of trouble with the blowout method, and I believe it's because there's some misunderstanding and some attention to detail and some minor things that cause trouble, and they don't really understand the intricacies of getting this to be blown out. Blowing it out is nice. If I blow this out this afternoon with you on video here, and tomorrow I decide to go camping, I just go camping. I don't have to do anything here. I just take this away. When I get to the camp out, I stick the water hose to the side of the camper, turn off the valves that I've left open for drainage in the back, and I'm good to go. There's no big deal. When springtime comes around, or if I want to camp during the winter, I can dry camp, no problem. I don't have to do anything with anything. I just get up and go. That's the nice benefit of just blowing it out. It's just ready to go, and you don't have to worry about anything. However, I'll give you a disclaimer. If you follow my instructions and something happens to your trailer, it's on you. It's not. This is how I do it. How you do it is your own business. If you choose to follow my instructions, that's your business. These are general good instructions, born out of a lot of experience. However, I have to give you a disclaimer. I don't want to be responsible for something that you do. I'm only responsible for what I do. this is what I do. Anyway, let's head into the shop and we'll talk about what we're going to do. Well, welcome to inside my shop. Quite a bit warmer in here. We need to go over some basically physics. Don't be afraid, it's no big deal. You need to understand some things that'll either make this blowout method for your trailer successful or not. So we're going to talk about water, we're going to talk about air, we're going to talk about gravity. In general, rule one, if this is a pipe and it's on a slope and it has water in it, and you hook air down here, a little valve here, and you start pumping air in this direction, that water won't come out. It'll circle around and bubble. Kind of like, remember the old coffee pots, percolator pots? Air will bubble up through, the water will slide back down, and basically when you're done here, some of the water would have come out, not all of it, and that water will settle back down. So rule one, don't try to pump water uphill in a pipe. That's rule one. Rule two, most of the pipes in a tab trailer, let's go to rule two on a second sheet of paper here. Rule two, the bottom of the trailer, the floor of the trailer looks like this. Here's the wheel and here's the ground, right? All right. Your tab trailer has pipes that lay along, right, even with the bottom. And you've seen them down there. They're underneath the seats. They're all around, but they lay on the bottom. If this is a pipe and it has water in it, let's zoom on in here, and it has water in it, and we blow air in behind this pipe, and this pipe is level, some of the water will blow out, but some of the water will stay behind because the air can pass over the top of the water. Let's draw that a little bigger. This is just the pipe. Here is the water in the pipe, and it can stay there because the air can pass over the top of it. Okay? So, rule two, don't blow out your pipes if they're level. Well, okay, so we're not going to blow out pipes that are uphill because the water won't come out. We're not going to blow out pipes that are level because the water won't come out. So what does that mean? What do I do? Rule three, and this is really important. Here's my wheel of my trailer. Here's the floor of my trailer. Here is the tongue of my trailer and my tongue jack. Jack that trailer up. Make this guy, new drawing, not exaggerated like this, but bring the front of your trailer up by about 5 to 10 degrees. What that does is that all of those pipes that are laying on the floor, they're all sloped. And when I blow this, when I put my air hose on the end of these lines, gravity will help. This is the way, and if you have a drain down here, all of that water will come out. There won't be any sitting in the pipes. There won't be any percolating in the pipes. Gravity will help us. All the water will move down to this end by gravity, and when we put air behind it, it will all come out. That is very important. Jack up the front of your trailer by about 5 to 10 degrees. It's not this much. This is probably about 30 degrees that I'm showing you here. But about 5 degrees, so that all the water that's in the pipes on the floor in your trailer goes to the back of the trailer where your drains are. Pretty simple. All right? Next thing we need to talk about. There are 3 systems you have to worry about when winterizing your tab trailer. 3 of them. You have to pay attention to all 3. One, the first system you have to worry about is the water tank and the pump. This is the low pressure. This is a low pressure system. There's a tank and a pump, and it connects to the rest of your trailer. That's the first system you have to take care of. The second system is the high pressure. That's where the hose hooks on the side of your trailer and all of the lines, faucets, shower, toilet, and all your gear. That's on the high pressure side. And the third piece that people forget about is the drain, the sewer. Underneath your sink, there's a drain and an S-pipe. You've seen these. It's called a P-trap, actually, and it traps a little bit of water in the bottom of that. Its intent is to keep sewer gases and stinky out of your trailer. There's one underneath your sink, and there's one underneath your shower. Same deal. That water will freeze and break those lines. So you have to take care of those two. So one, you have to take care of your storage tank and the pump. Two, you have to take care of the high pressure system. And three, you have to take care of those drain lines. Those are the three systems that we're going to be talking about. So in general, remember, don't pump uphill. All right, don't try to blow out your lines if they're uphill. Don't try to blow out your lines if they're flat. And remember, catch all three of your systems. So that's all the physics that we need to talk about. It's no big deal, but follow those rules, you'll be miles ahead. We're now going to go talk about the tools you need to do this job. And again, you need 3 tools, and that's all. Hello. Welcome back. These are the 3 tools that you need to blow out your trailer. It's great. No chemicals, no nothing, just 3 tools. This is a reasonably inexpensive compressor. It's a 1.5 horsepower, 6 gallon. 6 gallon is talking about the size of the tank. 1.5 horsepower is talking about the power of the electric motor that's here. This is a good size compressor to use for what we're going to do today. I already own this because I use it to inflate the tires on my trailer, to inflate the tires on my cars, to inflate bicycles. I mean, it's just a universal tool that I happen to have. If you buy your own, a couple things that are important. One, this one can go up to 150 psi, and it has 2 gauges. One, this gauge tells me the pressure that's in the tank, and this gauge tells me the pressure that's in the hose. It's important, very important. This dial adjusts the pressure in the hose. Never, ever put more than 50 pounds per square inch of air pressure in your trailer. If you do, you could damage it. Probably won't damage it, but you could. What will happen is there's an overpressure valve in the back of this trailer that'll and it'll start letting air out. That's its job. Oftentimes, if you were to go up to a campsite and they had really high pressure water, that would be its job, is to let out the excess pressure before it bursts your pipes in there. That's probably what would happen if you ran more than 50 psi while blowing out your tanks. I don't think it would really damage much. It would probably just pop that overpressure valve. No big deal. But the first thing you need is a compressor. Second thing you need is a hose. These hoses come with what are called quick disconnects. They're just, that straightforward. This plugs into there. Third thing you need is an adapter. This adapter I made up. It has a quick connector on one side, right, that fits into my hose, just like that. And the other is just a garden hose, and I just put it on with a hose clamp. Now you can buy these. It's important that you buy something like this with a quick disconnect on one side and a garden hose connector on the other side. They're usually just typically brass. I made this up because it was free. These are components that I had in my garage. Now you can buy a type that's different than this. It has a garden hose on one side and what's called a Schrader valve on the other. What's a Schrader valve? Well, this is my bicycle. That is a Schrader valve. It's a bicycle tire valve. You've seen that. The problem with the ones that have a Schrader valve, look at how small that air opening is in there. If you buy one of these adapters that has a hose connector on one side and a Schrader valve on the other, no matter what size compressor you have, you're not going to get the volume of air into your trailer necessary to push the water out. You'll be able to build up pressure, but it'll be slow. What you need to do is you need to have enough air volume, not just pressure, but enough air volume that you can basically sweep the water out of the lines. And you're not going to do that with one of these adapters with a Schrader valve on the end. That adapter needs to have a hose on one side and a quick disconnect on the other. So that's all you need. You need just a small compressor, not one of those little tire compressors, not one of the, no, you need something with a tank on it. Like I say, 6 gallon works well. You need some hose and you need an adapter. That's about it. Let's get to it. Here we are, back in my trailer. we're now going to start the winterizing process, blowout method. First system we're going to mess with, of the three systems we talked about, there's a low pressure system, a high pressure system, and a sewer system. We're going to deal with a low pressure system. Inside this trailer, there is a water storage tank right there. We need to empty that. So, out here toward the front, right here by the sewer lines, is a valve. You see it right there? That's typical of a ball valve. With the handle perpendicular to the hose, it's turned off. When I turn this, move this lever down into that position, that's on. Now my tank is already empty because it froze last night and I had to go through this winterizing process yesterday. So my tank is empty. But right now, water would be going on the ground. And that tank would be emptying. Now, my trailer is sitting level right now, and I have chocks in it, and it's connected to street power. So this is what we want. We want that valve open and the trailer level until the water stops coming out of that valve right there. That may take a minute, it may take 2 minutes, it may take 5, depends on how much water is in your tank. But don't do anything else until that is empty. Okay, so we're going to assume that that's empty. I'm going to leave that valve on. We're then going to go inside the trailer to the sink. This is the sink, and I'm going to turn on full just the cold water line. Just the cold water line. Every other valve in here is closed. So my valve outside on the ground to drain that tank is open, and my valve at the sink here is open. Next thing I want to do, turn on my pump. In the bathroom, this is the pump. Now what this is doing right now, the only thing it's doing is that since that tank is empty, the pump can't pull anything except the water that's in the input. This is the input, and this is the output of that tank. So it's pulling any water that might be on your input side, and it's clearing it out. So we'll let that run for a few minutes. Again, if I had water in my tank, water would be sputtering out of the faucet here. No big deal. I can feel air coming out. I know that my line is clean. And that's how you do this. Everywhere you go, just move around until you can feel air coming out, and you know you're good to go. So, I turn that off, I turn my pump off. What that means is that this has drained the tank. Running the pump with the faucet open has drained the line leading from the tank to the pump. My low pressure line is clear. Now there's some technical thing you might want, for those of you who want to know. This is a water tank from a Tab trailer. This is a 5-gallon tank that my trailer had. I upgraded mine, and you may have seen the video. I upgraded mine to a 9-gallon tank about a month ago. And so this is my old 5-gallon tank. But I want to show you something. This is the vent line. This is the vent line. This is the fill line. And that's the drain line. That's the line that when we pulled that valve over there, water's coming out here. But you can see that this tank, that drain line, when that thing was completely empty, you can see I would still have about maybe a 1/4 inch of water in the bottom of this tank. Now, technically, that's not a problem because this water is not trapped. It's only a 1/4 inch deep, and it has room to expand. So when it starts to freeze, just like an ice cube tray, ice cube trays are open on the top, and the reason that ice cube trays don't split is the ice has a place to expand, and it'll come up. So even though there may be a 1/4 inch of water in the bottom of here, as long as it's not trapped in the hoses or in the pipes or in the pump, that water can go ahead and freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw, and it won't hurt anything because it has room to expand inside the tank. So pull that line, open that valve, turn on your pump, let that water come out. Just like that. Okay, now that we're done with the low pressure system, we're going to work through the high pressure system. High pressure system, there's more more components to it, so it's a little more difficult but easy to follow up. This is my adapter. I'm going to screw my adapter in. I'm going to hook my adapter to my hose, and I'm going to put my compressor. Here we go. I have my compressor connected to my hose connected to my adapter, and my adapter screwed into my street water connection. That's simple. The other thing I've done is I've jacked my trailer up in the front. You see how that front is up and the back is down? We talked about that. That helps that water that's in those lines drain out. So now we're going to actually get to work. I'm going to turn the compressor on, let it come up to pressure, and then we'll go back inside and start working those valves, doing all the magic stuff. Okay, here we go. Compressor's run a while. I've got it turned off so you can hear me. But you can see that my tank is about 100 psi and my hose is about 50 psi. That's really important. Don't apply more than about 50 psi to your trailer. Okay, so now that we've got the compressor all set up and ready to go, I want to show you the back of the trailer where this water that we're going to drain out of the trailer, where it's actually going to come out from. All right, here we are underneath the trailer on the passenger side of the back, or excuse me, on the driver's side on the back. That line right there, that is the cold water drain line. That right there, that's the hot water drain line. This guy, this long one right here, that's the glycol drain line. Don't mess with that. We're not messing with the heater. We're just messing with the water system. So don't mess with that one. And finally, over here, that is the overpressure drain line. The system has an overpressure line. That's the line where water will come out when it's overpressure. When we open these valves, when we have water in these lines, this is all going to be spraying out here. So I wanted to show you where to come and look to see if you finished draining your lines out or not. So let's go back inside. Hi, here we are back in the trailer. We are now back underneath the bench seat next to the Aldi water heater. I've tried to build this video. This is about take number 10. I've been trying to make this as clear as possible. It's a little bit complex, but I want to try to make it as clear as possible without the video being hours and hours long. So we're going to try this one more time and try to explain what's going on. So we'll start at the top. I want to explain what you're looking at. The blue lines are the cold water lines that feed the hot water heater. The red lines, the red pipes, are the hot water lines that feed your shower and your sink. So water comes in through the blue, goes through the heater, and comes out through the red. There are several valves around, and it's quite complex and it confuses people, but they're really straightforward. Valve number 1, that valve, that is the cold water drain line. Valve number 2, that is the cold water shutoff to the heater. Valve number 3, that is the hot water shutoff to the heater. Valve number 4, that is the hot water drain line. Valve number 5, that is the bypass line. See how it connects between the blue and the red? That bypasses the blue and the red. And the last one, valve number 6, that is the Aldi overpressure line. If too much pressure comes in these lines, either because the water is boiling or something, that valve will open and water will come out the bottom as we showed you. So, now that you know what you're looking at, rewind the tape and look at the valves if you need to again to familiarize you with it if you missed any of that. But here we go. I've got my compressor hooked onto the front of the trailer and it's up and running. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to have that compressor running because you can't hear me when it is. So just imagine that you hear this in the background, okay? And that there's water in this system, because when I tried to do it on video, it was just too loud and you couldn't hear me. So right now, this line, this blue line, you see it running forward to the trailer? That's where it hooks to the front of my trailer and to my compressor. So, first thing you do is you come to the cold water drain line and you open it. When you open that, all kinds of water is going to come out of the bottom of this trailer, back where we showed you, right? Back in the bottom, by the wheel down there. Lots of water is going to come out. Basically, it's clearing out all of the lines between this water heater and the front of the trailer. So that goes until you no longer see it anymore, until water's just dribbling out. So then after you've drained that line, you turn it back off. The next thing you do, and this is important, you can see that, remember we told you that we shouldn't be draining or trying to blow water uphill. Well, look at some of these lines. Some of these lines are uphill. So there's nothing we can do about that. What I have is a method by which we can run water forward through the water heater and out, and reverse through the water heater and out, and forward and reverse. And what that does is it'll clear out all of these lines and the tank, because eventually, during one of these cycles, it will be pushing the water downhill with the air. Hope that makes sense to you. Basically, we're going to run the water forward through the water heater, and then we're going to run the water backward through the water heater, back and forth and back and forth. And I do that about 4 times, and I find that I get no more water out of the system. That cleans out all these lines and this. So after we have opened this guy and closed him, all the lines forward are empty. Now, to make the water go forward in this trailer is very easy. Right now we're in camp mode. These valves are all in the position that you would normally be to be camping. The cold water drain valve is closed. The cold water supply line is open. The hot water supply line is open. The bypass valve is closed. The hot water drain line is closed, and the overpressure valve is closed. That's your normal camp scenario. To get the water to drain out of the hot water heater, you have to do just one thing. Open the hot water heater drain. Just that valve, that one. Now, you've got about 2 gallons of water in here, so this is going to run for quite a while. Your compressor's going to come on, and you're going to hear a bunch of gurgling, burbling, all kinds of noise and stuff, and water's going to be spraying out in the bottom of your trailer. Let that go until it stops. It'll just be dribbling and spraying and just doing a little bit, and then it'll seriously calm down, and you know that you've got most of the water out of here. So once that happens, you come back in here and you turn this valve off. So now we're back in camp mode. Now, like we talked about, some of these lines are uphill, so there's going to be still water trapped in here because of that percolating process. So now we've drained the water out forward. Now we need to drain the water out backwards. This is a little tricky, and it's very important you follow these steps exactly. So here you go. To get the water to go backwards through the water heater, the first thing you need to do is turn off the cold water supply line to the water heater. Next, turn on the bypass valve. Next, turn on, by lifting it, the overpressure valve. Now look at what this is doing. Water or air from my compressor will come down the supply line. It will not be able to go normally into the water heater like it normally does. So it'll be forced to come through the open bypass line. Well, after it's gone through the open bypass line, it'll come down and go backwards up the supply line, right? This used to feed water out of the water heater, but now we've got water going into the water heater this way. So it's going to come across the bypass, go backwards through the water heater, back down through the water heater, and out this valve. So now, right now, water is going backwards through the loop. Pretty straightforward. By moving 3 valves, we now routed the water reverse through the hot water heater. And again, water's going to be spraying out of the bottom of this guy, just like it did before. And you let that go until it does. Now, next step, stop it from going in reverse. Flip the overpressure switch off. Switch the bypass off and turn the supply line back on. Now we're back in camp mode. So like I say, we do that 4 times. That was time number 1. Here we go. Time number 2. Open the hot water drain. Running water forward. Close the hot water drain. Water stopped. close the supply line, open the bypass line, open the overpressure. So close the supply, open the bypass, open the overpressure. Now water is going backwards through the system. From the supply, through the bypass, back through the heater, up and around, and back down and out that line. Now we're going backwards. So I just do this process 3 times, or 4 times. So again, I'm just going to go through it once without saying anything. So here we go. That's forward, because that guy's on. That's the only valve. So stop it. We're going to make it go in reverse. Supply off. Bypass on, overpressure on. Overpressure off, bypass off, supply on. So in that order. Do that 4 times, and each time you'll see less and less and less water come out, and you will have gotten absolutely all the water out of the Aldi, all the water out of all of these lines. A little bit complex. I hope you can follow that. If you can't and you're still having trouble, put a comment on the video, and I will we'll try to make this another take. But in general, all we're doing is we're adjusting the valves so that water goes forward through the water heater and then goes reverse through the water heater, so that we're draining both the top and the bottom of the water heater. We don't leave any water behind. Hope that helps. Let's continue on. What we need to do is go to our bathroom. Now, we talked about it's important not to try to pump water uphill. Well, see that loop in my shower thing? So grab your shower and put it on the ground, right like that. Then turn the hot water line on until no water comes out the bottom, and turn it off. Turn the cold water line on until no water comes out of the bottom, and turn it off. And do that 4 times. On, off, and that guy will be clear. Next thing we do, we go to our toilet. It's our toilet. Pull the toilet just until water starts coming out. Just a little bit. And it'll spray, it'll go shh, you'll hear it. Just pull that until no water comes out. And do that a couple of times. Just like that. Your toilet's clear, shower's clear, shower head is clear. Now at the sink. Now, same thing here. All my other valves are turned off. I turn the cold on, let water come out. Turn the hot on, let water come out. Turn the cold on, out, and out. Again, I do that just 4 times. This is kind of ritual for me. This is the way it goes. But you remember, by doing this, we're actually pumping water uphill, aren't we? So that those lines, even though this may stop sputtering here, we've still got water in those lines. No real way to push those out. Best way. Now that I'm all done, right? I've gotten the water heater empty. I've gotten the lines mostly empty. I've got the lines to the sink mostly empty, and I've got the toilet mostly empty. What we're going to do is open all of these valves and let the water drain by gravity back down to this low spot again. So, I'm going to go out front. I'm going to turn my compressor off and disconnect it. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back inside again. I have my compressor disconnected. So now my system is no longer under any pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. This is the high side of my trailer, and that's the low side of my trailer. Remember, I've got it jacked up. I open the hot water line. I open the cold water line. I open the hot water line in my shower and the cold water line in my shower. I pull the toilet. Now what this is doing is that any water that's left in those lines is now draining back here again. And here it is. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my cold water drain. I'm going to open my hot water drain. And that's going to let these lines drain out. Any water that was still in the sink area is now back here. I'm going to let that sit a few minutes. Then I'm going to turn these valves off. This guy off. This guy off. We're all off now. Now I'm going to repressurize the system, and any water that has drained by gravity back in here will now go out. Here we are back. My compressor is now reconnected for the last time. I have a little bit of water in each one of these lines. Not a lot, just a little. That's the water that has drained back from the kitchen sink, drained back from the toilet, drained back from the shower. So I've got a little bit of water in here. The compressor is running again. I've got pressure reapplied. And again, reach over here, open the drain line, and it'll spray any of that water out. Close the cold water drain line, open the hot water drain line, and it'll spray any of that water out. At this point, I'll pull this guy one last time. That's the pressure valve. We are now 100% no water in the lines. We have forced the water out of the tank, forced the water out of the toilet, forced the water out of the shower, forced the water out of the sink, let it drain by gravity back into this area if there was any drops of water left in there, and force them out. One final step, and this is really important, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but every single valve that you have, every single one, turn them all to 45 degrees. See how that's 45 degrees? It's not on, it's not off, it's 45. That one's 45. We're going to turn this one at 45. We're going to turn this one at 45. See how they're all 45? All of them. And this one at 45. So I've got the hot water drain, the bypass valve, the cutoff, the hot water cutoff to the Aldi, the cold water cutoff to the Aldi, and the drain. All of them set to 45 degrees. That's really important. And there's one outside, out front. We'll go look at it. We're going to set that. Also, that guy, remember him? He is now set at 45 degrees. And we'll talk at the very end of this video about why that's really, really important. So, that is a little bit complex, but that's the process by which you make sure that all the water is out of the Aldi heater system. Now, we've done the low pressure system, we've done the high pressure system, and the last thing we need to do is the trap. See that trap under the sink? There'll be water in there. And there's a trap in the shower. There'll be water in there. Now, you could put glycol down there, and again, I don't like the glycol business. What I use, this is really simple, and this is cheap. This is from your store. This is isopropyl alcohol. It has a very low freezing point. This happens to be, see, that's 91%, not the 71 stuff. This is the 91 stuff. You get this at your pharmacy, no big deal. This is a 16-ounce bottle. Just pour 16 ounces of this down that drain. Take your other bottle of it, another 16 ounces, and pour down that drain. That will displace the water that's in the sink trap and the shower trap with 91% alcohol. This stuff has a really, really, really low freezing point and will protect those pipes very well. And I do that as opposed to putting some kind of ethylene or propylene glycol or whatever. And this is cheap. This is non-toxic. The other thing this does is it kills germs. So what you'll find is by putting this down your sink drain and putting it down your shower drain is it kills germs and makes your shower drain and sink drain smell a lot better. It kills that bacteria that's making that stink. So that's what I do. Just buy 2 bottles of this. One goes down the sink, one goes down. Here we are back outside. Last step, I'm now dealing with my black and gray water tanks. Now, I always, when I finish camping, I always drain them and clean them real well, but you remember that we put about 32 ounces worth of liquid into both of those drains, 16 ounces into the shower, 16 ounces in there, and the water that was in those traps is now in the gray water tank, and there might be something in the black water tank. So what I do is I put just down a little pail or something down underneath here, take the cap off, pull the gray water tank, and you see I got a couple of drips out of that, no big deal. And I pull the gray water tank. There is the what was left in my gray water tank, just a few drops. That's what was in the drains that the alcohol that I put in there, it flushed out. So next thing you do is leave this open, leave that open. That's the way I leave it in winter, so that if any water does get in those systems, it won't damage these valves and freeze against them. Well, I know this is a long video, but that's about the best I could compress it while still explaining what I was doing. I'll now level my trailer, put my stabilizers down, and just physically set it up for winter. I'll put a tarp over it, that kind of thing. But that's the process. Drain the freshwater tank using that valve. Drain the pump by turning the pump on. Drain the Aldi water heater by opening up the valves. We talked about how to go back and forth and back and forth. I like to do that 4 times. That makes sure that any loops of water, it pushes water out both ways and always out. We talked about how then to turn on the faucets with the compressor turned off, so that that water will just drain back down and then blow that water out. If you have some questions, feel free to let me know, but this is how I do it. This has been really successful. Never had any trouble. There is no water in this. You should just, anyway, have a great day. Oh, and just before we close here, I want to let you know, in winter I leave all of my valves turned on to both my sink and these, so that any water that happens to be in there will drain out. Okay, here we are back in the shop, and as a sign off, last thing I wanted to do is talk to you about why I leave my ball valves turned at a 45-degree angle. If you look on the manufacturer's websites of these ball valves, not the trailers or that kind of stuff, but the actual manufacturer of them, they talk about that's how you should store them when they're frozen. And it has to do with that ball in there. You can see in there, when I open this, this is just an example, this happens to be off a carton, but they all work the same way. See how I can see through that? Let's show you what's going on here. There's a ball, and it has a hole drilled in it. And we have a faucet around this, and water can flow through that hole, just like that. Alright, just flows right through that hole. But when I turn this ball to the off position, you see how that ball is turned, and that tunnel that used to flow water through it now is horizontal to the pipes. Well, guess what? This section of pipe right here, this section of the ball, that's water. That guy's trapped water. And what will happen is this little slug of water will freeze and break the size of that valve. It'll actually crack your valve. So by putting it at a 45-degree angle, like this, you can see that it's still open. Well, air can still come through here, and out. See how that can drain? It doesn't trap. The valve is open, but still not trapping that little slug of water. That's real important. Most people will just turn their valves off, and they'll find that in a really hard freeze, that little section of water that's trapped in here will freeze inside that ball, crack the ball or crack the valve. So what I do is, like the manufacturers recommend, is I leave all of my ball valves turned at a 45-degree angle. That leaves them open so that they don't hold water and trap water in the valve itself. Great little, that's going to save you a lot of headache. Anyway, have a great day.